So, there are so many things that I want to talk about today. Obviously, the prop is one topic,
Right.
but I would also love to get your perspective on, some of the broader topics, such as the future of DAOs, the future of non-sputer and all of that. But let's start, let's start with this prop itself. So, I think basically since the start of your residency several months ago, Builder DAO has really been turned around, and we have seen so many positive improvements in the past, I would say 6 months. So, can you talk about some of the highlights in your residency in the past 5 to 6 months?
Sure. And yeah, so just to give a quick history on that for anyone who may not be aware, the way this all got started was almost a year ago. So last November, we got another month to go. Right after the launch of Nouns Builder, I launched a DAO. It was like the fourth or fifth one. Purple was the first. Got to give some props out to Purple. Love me some Purple. They were number one. I mean, Chris Corella in the Provenance. I mean, he will do anything to be the first.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So anyway, we realized we needed. So Ripe had posted something about, hey, is there a Discord for Nouns Builder? Because he had also created a DAO that week as well, Nog's DAO. And the Zora team was like, no, we don't have one, but if you start one, we'll support it. So I jumped in and went, okay, and we launched the Discord and started to use that for. It was started as a place for people to ask questions, get in touch with Zora support with their issues. It was very raw and new, and nobody knew how to use things. So that was the intention, and then we added Builder DAO to it. So I was not a member of Builder DAO until March when I had my official first prop
Right.
passed. But from November to March, I was kind of doing the role, but without the title or the funding. I was doing it because I was really passionate. I really wanted to see us succeed, and I love the product. And where this is all coming from is I truly believe that DAOs have an opportunity to change the world, to change the way organizations operate in a number of different ways. And to me, the Nounish style DAO is a little bit more superior to other ones that I've seen that are, ERC20 based and things like that. So that was where this all like sort of came from, in my desire to do the work. And then, but I was doing that without like official authority, if you will, or like, or any kind of like,
Yeah.
yes, we want you to do this. So my first prop went up in March, and most of that was a retro for the work I'd already done. And then the second one went up after that to do another 3-month extension. And sort of around the time frame of April to May is when we started to see a shift. And that's actually when I met you in April in New York.
Yes.
So
In New York.
to
Yeah.
me, that was sort of like my first big initiative. And it didn't seem big because you were there. It was small. It was a small group, but
No, it was very nice. It was
it
small
was
and powerful
amazing.
group. Yeah, it was.
Powerful, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was that moment that I was like, okay, we can turn these things around. We can turn things around. We just need to have better conversations. We need to make sure we're talking with each other and not at each other. And we had some, major issues early on.
Yeah.
There were mistakes were made in a DAO I didn't control. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean,
So
interesting mistake. Yes.
yeah, interesting to say the least. And I don't even want to go down that road because it was just so negative. But there was such a negative energy happening in that moment, in that March, April timeframe. It was not great. So at that point, like when my next prop went up, I said, like, if we can't turn this around, like I will, and I said this to people in Nouns. So this is what was happening behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know. Is there's a lot of people within Nouns who are starting to say, we should ask for the money back. This is a mistake. This is a disaster. All this major negativity. And I'm like, okay, give me 3 months. Give this team 3 months. You had some new people, like that's around the time when Zach came in. That's around the time when there was a shift, David had left and Patty came in. It's like, give us a minute. Because
Mm-hmm.
I believe that this product is amazing. We just need to fix some things, and we've had some issues, but give us a minute. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that
Yep.
was the moment, that was the shift right there within that April-May timeframe. Um,
Absolutely.
and then so that that Bagels and Builders meetup was fantastic. I feel like it started to get us back on a really good track. And it was small, but like you said, powerful. We did
Mm-hmm.
we did a Twitter space then, and so we were able to like sort of broadcast that out a
Yep, I
little bit.
remember
And
that.
then and then you're also a part of the next thing I would point to, and that's Farcon.
Mm-hmm.
So we were doing these shifts within talking to each other, and also shifting to creating a builder guild, trying to get more people involved. Satori with the newsletter. That's another one. Like really trying to find ways to increase communication, not only outward to other people, but within ourselves, so that we were talking with each other and really communicating. And I think, between Patty and I and Zach, like in Neo, um, in these core teams, like doing the work, and then creating an ops working group. So there's been all these little pieces that are all a piece of this puzzle. Like I am one small piece of the puzzle. Everyone's a piece of this puzzle. Every member of this DAO is a piece of this puzzle. You either are bringing, something good and positive, or you're, providing negative, or you're neutral. You've got three choices there.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily now, those who are bringing the positive energy have overtaken those who were bringing a lot of negativity and causing a lot of havoc. So I feel like
Yep.
we've had this major shift in the past, I would say 5 months. I would say going back to like
Yep.
May. May is probably when we started to really move on a more positive trajectory. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, and it's really about making sure that's consistent, right? And making sure we have things like this is fantastic. I feel like this is the next iteration of what we've been doing. But making sure we have consistent DAO voice chats that people can pop into. I
Sure.
think office hours that I just started, just in this past 3 months, past couple months, has been really helpful, just to say, I'm going to be here. This is where you can find me. If you have a question, if you want to talk about a prop, or if we don't have a meeting and you have a prop up and you want to, like we did with Ripe just recently, and you want to talk it through, this is a time period that we have set aside that you can do that, so that people know where to go, what they can do, and have a place where they can ask questions. And then also the Farcaster channel, that's been a huge win, like a
Mm-hmm.
huge
Yep.
opportunity for communication. So, and I think there was also I think there was a lot of misgivings about me and my intentions too early on, as well as like, I don't know, like a misnomer or a misunderstanding of like, I want everything in the Discord and I want to control it. And it's like, no, I don't. Like, because there was a lot
Yeah.
of like, we need to get rid of this Discord. The Discord's the problem. I'm like, no, it's just because there's a couple people in here who are really annoying. That's the problem.
It's true.
It's like, because you
Yeah.
have people who bring negative energy into your space, and I made some mistakes in not shutting some of that down much sooner. But when you have people come, it starts to feel like the whole thing is the problem, and that's not necessarily the case. So I think we need all of these different things. I don't think we need one avenue or one place where we say, oh, well, it'd be like me saying right now, well, Bill, we don't really need to do this because I have Build-A-Rocks. It's like, no, this is totally different. And this is another great avenue for communication. That's one avenue that reaches out more externally. And
Mm-hmm.
we need all these different experiments, because we don't know what works best yet. We're still figuring that out.
Yep.
So I feel like the big wins over the past, like, I would say 5 months, just to extend a little bit better, is like, the various events. So that's been like, Bagels and Builders, and then FarCon was huge
Yep.
and tremendous. And just personally, I felt like that was one of the best experience I've had this year, or maybe
100%.
in Web3 period. Um, I feel like overpriced JPEGs is the gift that keeps on giving. And I knew that when we did it, and I know there was some pushback and people didn't quite see the vision that I had, but man, has that freaking paid off. Like,
Yeah.
even just last week, like last week, you've got, Carly talking about what's going on in Nouns. And as she starts that conversation with a little hesitation about not really sure about nouns and this and that, with Seneca, who, these are two huge thought leaders in our space,
Yeah.
saying right off the bat, talking about Nouns Builder, talking about Builder DAO, how amazing they were to work with. That's a DAO that really knows what they're doing. They are so organized. They are a really amazing group. And to hear that, like on a, podcast that gets 60,000 views a month of, from people in our space, like that's amazing.
Yep.
So that was a huge win.
Hmm.
I love seeing, even though we didn't win the prop houses, the base prop houses,
Yep.
the eyeballs that we got on us and the recognition that we got just by placing as high as we did, to me felt really, really great. It felt like a acknowledgement of like, hey, we've been doing a lot of work here, and it is seen. It is appreciated, even if we didn't, quite get over the finish line. Like that to me was a huge win as well. So there's been a lot of small things. But just also just the day to day and interacting, I feel like we have such an amazing group of builders that are in Builder DAO who are not only participating in our DAO, but they're doing like amazing things. And you were a perfect example of this. They're doing amazing things out on their own, and all those amazing things reflect so well back on us. So it's been, to me, like I feel like we are in such a groove, especially with the L2 stuff, that right
Yeah.
now, like we went from, and somebody else shouted that out completely unsolicited, and this like brought so much to my heart when I saw that, was Lil Nouns Prop House, and that's actually
Hmm.
SQ who's behind it, from Lil Nouns, just randomly saying, hey, I thought Nouns Builder was a huge mistake when the way it started off. It was a rocky start, but wow, have they turned it around? And I'm like, wow, that was really nice to see. So I feel like we were getting a lot of recognition that yes, we may have had a rocky start, but we are, on the right track, and now we just have to figure out how to keep it going. So I don't
Yeah,
even know if I answered your
exactly.
question, Bill. I kind of went
No,
all over the place there.
100%. I think you've answered the next five questions that I had prepared. So perfect.
And you
100%.
have to know that I am not used to being the interviewee. I'm used to being the interviewer.
Yeah, I know, and I think you've told the perfect story of how we got started and how we turned around, this whole thing. And obviously, we should talk about the next several months. What
Mhm.
are you most looking forward to in the next quarter?
What I really want to dive into is um, how do we get people to start thinking about Nouns Builder differently in using it in different ways?
Yeah.
And sort of what inspired that was seeing some of the creativity that I've seen coming up, and it kind of started, like Yami was doing something with I think it's Paladin, that was kind of interesting, and then seeing DAO Wars with MetaMonk and Sunabu, and seeing what they're doing there. And then there's a couple, DAOs that are just in the works right now. Based management is going to be something really special,
Hmm.
um, that's coming soon. And Goodlandia, and working with them and what they're going to do with some really high profile artists. So finding new ways to use Nouns Builder, to me, is really, I think, a great way for us to market ourselves. So one of the things that I'm going to be working on is I have two games that I have in the works that I've been working on for a
Hmm.
while, and just trying to get them in the right way that I think will be useful, but really using them to educate around our platform. So about how does this work? What are the best ways to do things? How do you do them? And just make it fun so that people want to engage. And the only reason that we can do this right now is because of the L2 integration.
Yep.
Because if you did this on it didn't make sense on mainnet. It would be too cost prohibitive for anybody to participate. But I think getting people to experiment with DAOs and see what it can do and start to think about possibilities, then we get to see the creativity come out and really start to flourish. And I think, framing this more as on-chain communities rather than DAOs, I think makes it a little bit more friendly as well. So that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to.
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to us exploring more ways for outreach, but also doing it in a way that's conscious of our budget. So one of the things I'm working on with Lil Nouns right now is an event at Art Basel. And
Hmm.
that event, I want to bring back Bagels and Builders as part of that event. So the main part of the event would be sponsored by Lil Nouns, but we have an opportunity to do like a 1/8 sponsorship and have a meetup, and then also have a panel about building within the Nouns ecosystem that would include Builder DAO as well. So doing things
Hmm.
like that. I'm really, I think the big thing we have to focus on now is the not as fun stuff, which is figuring out our budget, finding
Sure.
revenue. Yeah, you're in that upskirt with me.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
am. Yes.
it's a whole different thing. It's very different from a lot of these other DAOs where like we have to think about this like we want this to sustain for the next 100 years. Okay, how do we do
Sure. Yeah.
that? How do we do that? How do we find a way to, produce revenue beyond the auctions? Because the auctions only take us so far. Um, so, I know Patty's working on some grants. I'm looking at different, ways we can generate some revenue. And I think a lot of what we do, I tend to be one of the ones who are more out facing and like talking to people about Builder DAO and out and about. And I think, that is part of, is also in my mind of like, okay, the more people that we, get to know what this is, we can start to figure out other ways to connect and find other opportunities for sponsorship and partnerships and grants and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of what I'm going to be thinking about in the next few months in trying
Yeah.
to see what we can do because we want to keep this going and we don't want to get to a point where we're like out of funding. So
100%. And you've touched on a few things that are really interesting. I want to go through them one by one.
yeah,
One
go.
is the
Hmm.
the, the gamified experience
Yeah,
for DAO education / exploration, right? I think that is, well, I would say that's a very innovative way for people to experience what Nounspeeder has to offer. So can you talk
yeah,
more about what we can expect from those
yeah,
gamified
yeah. I
experiences?
should. I'm going to give you a little alpha. I'll give you some alpha.
Okay,
So there's two
fantastic. I love
things. Yeah, you want the alpha, Bill. I know you do.
that.
So
Yes.
there's two things. So the first thing is I did launch Based Mingos, and that was really to experiment and see, okay, I did it as part of a DAO workshop, which that's another thing I want to continue doing,
Yeah.
but
Can you
just more
talk
on like a
about
monthly
Base
basis.
Mingo for a second?
So based, yeah,
Yeah,
so Based
I know
Mingos
you
is
wrote an article about it, right? And it was featured
yeah,
on the front page
and it was
of
featured. Yeah, it was great. That was so cool.
yeah.
So Base Mingos I launched during a DAO workshop to demonstrate this is how you launch a DAO on Base. And I did that with the idea that I was going to move Just the Flamingo, which was the first DAO I created on Nouns Builder to
Yep.
learn how it worked, um, and move that all over to Base Mingos. But I added 3 new flamingo heads. So I'm a little obsessed with the flamingos if you haven't figured that out. Okay. So I now have 4 different flamingo heads within Base Mingos. Everybody who was in the original DAO has a Base Mingo as well. So what we're going to do is play Mingo poker. We're going to play a little flamingo poker with a little
Hmm.
with a little prize. So you'll need to have a certain number of, if you have like 5 of the same head, you'll have 5 of a kind, and you might be the winner. But we'll do this where, you'll have to put a proposal in if you think you're the winner, and then it'll have to be voted on, because if somebody else thinks they have a hand that's a winner instead, they'll have to put their proposal in. So I'm gonna play around with different mechanics there. So that's a pretty simplified one. The
Hmm.
one that's a little more complicated, that I literally have been thinking about this for 2 years and trying to figure out a way to do it that would make sense, is a Settlers of Catan type of game, but it's Settlers of Downton.
Hmm.
And it's going to be, again, a way to get people starting to like, yeah, interact with the auctions, interact with proposals, and putting proposals in order to get points, and then having a winner who can, sort of take half the treasury at the end of this. So and I'm going to seed some of this like just out of pocket because I can do that pretty easily with base because it doesn't take much for to give some funds for people to play and interact and all of that. It's literally like 2 cents and things like that to do voting and 2 cents to do proposals, and it's kind of crazy how cheap that becomes, where it makes it so that we can start to have that interaction with the platform and people will get to know it and start to understand what is a proposal, what is okay, I have to vote. Well, wait a minute. I have to get people to vote for me. How do I do that? Where do I find them? And all those sort of processes of governance that we're kind of used to at this point, that if you're
Hmm.
new, you have no idea where to start. But if it's something fun and gamified, you might get interested. Whereas if it's something kind of dull and I don't know, governance based, which for me, obviously, I like that, but a lot of people will be like, that's boring. Um, that's my idea anyway. And so we'll see if it flies. I'm hoping it'll be fun. Um, and I think it's a good thing to experiment with and see if we can get people interested and excited about our platform, really.
Yeah.
So
I,
that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing. So I haven't launched anything with either of these yet. I have a lot of it ready to go, and I'm tweaking a few things, and I'm really just going to time it. I want to time it right because a lot of these things have to run. Like I want to run them quickly. Like I want to speed run
mhm.
them essentially because I don't want them to drag on. Um, so I have to find, good timing, get some promotion out there, and I'll do that probably within the next couple of weeks. So it'll
Yeah,
be a fun
well,
little thing.
that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Seriously, this is very exciting. I don't think I know any other DAO that is like doing similar things, right? Using like games to
Yeah.
educate new users and onboard new users. So like super, super exciting. And I'm glad that we got some, very nice alpha,
Yeah.
on this call.
Yeah. Got to give
um,
you some alpha, Bill, for taking the time to, yeah, invite me
yeah,
here,
yeah. I mean, after all, it's called an alpha caster. So yeah, of course.
Exactly. Great point. We got to have alpha on the alpha
Yeah.
caster.
Yes.
I love that.
The other, yeah, I mean, the other alpha that I want to talk about is that you mentioned that you want to do more in-person events, right?
Yes.
And our base of in Miami could be a good example. And obviously, you mentioned that we've already done sponsorship with Farcon in
Yep.
June of this year. So can you talk about sort of what are some of the type of the events that we should sponsor
Yeah.
that is good for our growth?
You know what? I think one conversation we should probably have, and this might be something I'll put on the agenda for our next like larger DAO meeting, is kind of identifying the conferences that we think are best suited for us. And one of those I would say is ETH Denver, especially the DAO Summit. I don't know what they call it.
Yes, DAO Denver,
It's
DAO
like
Denver.
basically a DAO Denver. Yes, thank you. But we should have like, I really need to get on, start to, apply for speaking and other members of the DAO should too. So we should identify some of those key places that we want to be that make sense for us and start to support those efforts. So I'd love to see members of the DAO who are like, you know what, I think I want to go speak here and talk about Builder DAO or incorporate it as part of, and it can be also other, it could be talking about Purple. It doesn't have to be talking about Builder DAO. It could be talking about a DAO built on Nouns Builder and getting that out there more so that we're sharing what we're doing. Because there's people, a lot of people just don't even know about it. So there's a little bit of that, but also at the same time, making sure we have meetups at any of these larger events for DAO members and members of any Nounish DAO, like really just bringing people together, because I think those conversations are incredibly important. You
Yep.
you you make a different connection when you meet somebody in person. So I think
Hmm.
there's like two aspects to this. There's the one that's like, how do we promote and use these opportunities as marketing? But then there's also this other aspect of how do we use these opportunities for community building? And we need to like merge both of those and really identify. And then going back to the budget issue, is identify the places where we think we can have the most impact. And there's certain ones that are obvious to me. Farcon was obvious one to me. Like, and I, I thought that immediately, but then after the fact, I was like 110%, because we saw token purchases immediately, like
Yep.
that was fabulous. So there was a direct impact there, but also just in general, I feel like it just solidified what we're doing here and it gave me at least a lot of confidence in that we were on the right track. But I think that audience is our audience,
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
So figuring out who our audience is and making sure we're there. So anything that's, big and related to DAOs, we really should be there, but also some of these NFT related, conferences as well, like NFT NYC may make sense. And again, it's also, where are people going to be, and trying to figure out how we can find those opportunities and help people who want to do events in the areas where they are,
hmm
we need to be on the other side of the world too, where I may not be able to get to. And that's where Zach and Neo are. And,
Yeah.
making sure they have enough, if they're open to it, getting them on some panels on that side of the world and things like that. So, we really have to, I think we need to start thinking about this as a larger strategy rather than one-offs. One-offs are fine, especially early on. But I think if we start to think about this more from a larger strategy and put a budget and say, this is how much we're going to spend on this type of thing, and then let's find the best opportunities for that. So I think is the better way to go on that.
Yep. I I really want to echo this point because you mentioned DAO Denver. I was actually there earlier this year, and I attended quite a few sessions. It was like a 2-day event, and I was there for at least half of that. And that was also when I first met Chris Carrilla in person.
Right,
He
right.
was,
And
yeah,
he spoke, which was great. Right. That
yeah,
was amazing. Yep.
exactly. He gave a talk
Yep.
on, I think, Nounish DAOs, right? So
Yep.
nouns and purple and nouns builder. So
Oh,
I
by the
think,
way, I think that was
yeah.
officially the first time, because, again, Chris with the provenance. I think that was the first time anyone did a speaking engagement about Nouns Builder. So I have to shout him out for that.
Yeah, we need to give him a POEP. Yes, to
Every time he
establish
did
the
something
provenance.
first, yeah, we'll have to go backwards and get him all for all of his things.
Yeah, yeah, but I really think that we should number one, try to get a speaker slot in the
Mm-hmm.
event. The other is
Yep,
to host a side event, maybe
absolutely.
around that. I remember in Denver, right next to DAO Denver, there was another DAO event. I forgot what it's
Yep.
called, but
Mm-hmm.
like people were there, and then like they have gatherings, and like those DAOs are not all of them are similar, right? Some of them are
Mm-hmm.
quite different from what we're doing, but it's really important to get in front of this audience and then to basically just let them know what we're doing. And like we have
Absolutely.
so many great stuff that I don't think we have marketed
No.
properly, right? So like
We
we
don't
should.
we don't tell our story well enough, and honestly, that's a much larger problem for nouns as well. Like, we just
Mhm.
don't tell our story well enough yet. But we will. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah,
But
we
yeah,
will.
you're 100% right. And I think that's, yeah. And I think the other way we do this in terms of thinking about budget is to partner with these other nounish DAOs and nounish folks in the ecosystem, to say, okay, if you're doing an event, how can we split this cost, come together? Because we are small, so we don't necessarily need, or we just do very small meetups. We can do that as well, and I think there's benefit to that also. But finding ways to, so that's, a great example is the thing we're doing in Art Basel. It was like, okay, Lil Nouns wants to have a presence. Okay, well, how can we be a part of that as well, so that we don't have to spend a ton of money? We can support what they're doing, so they get a benefit from us covering some of the cost, but we also get an opportunity to connect, and it's all the same ecosystem, and it's our audience also. So, finding those opportunities. I think Farcaster, working with Matthew and Eventcaster, is another way to go about that as well, and saying, hey, can we split this cost or contribute to this and be a part of that,
Yep.
are great ways to approach it. And Purple as well, and just sort of bringing that all together, so we can
Yep.
benefit without having to kill the treasury in the process, because
100%.
events can get expensive.
I
Yeah.
wanted to touch
I
on
got a
Farc.
lot of crap for expensive bagels, but it was New York. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
It's
it was
expensive.
in a very nice hotel, right? And like
Hmm.
it was super. The setup was super nice, so it was money
Yeah.
well spent,
Yeah, it
100%.
worked well.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on Farcaster in just a second, but before
Yeah.
that, since we are on the topic of spending and sort of budgeting, right? I know that we've had a lot of those discussions both in the ops group and in a wider community calls on the Discord. That is, what are some of the areas that we should spend more? What are some of the areas that we
Oof.
should be a bit more cautious, right? And I know we've also been talking about sort of putting our treasury into different buckets, right?
Yeah.
Tax, marketing, contract dev, clients, all of that. So, well, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on sort of spending and budgeting in general?
Yeah, I think
I know it's
this
a
is
tough
so
topic.
tricky.
Sorry.
It's so tricky. Well, it's tricky because, in an ideal world, should we be doing a lot with marketing events and all that? Yeah, that'd be great. But I think we have to pull back on that a little bit right now and just be a little cautious and just be smart. I think it's about, more about being smart and strategic in the way we make these choices. But I look at this, I think we've talked about five buckets, but I'm just going to narrow it down to three because I think it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Is like tax is one. It's like we have to, right? There's no choice there. So that's, number one. And then you've got to pay the devs to keep the protocol going. Period. Like we need these amazing, and we've got amazing devs. We got an amazing dev team. So I think for the core pieces, like there's nothing without that. So that to me is another one that like that's a have to. And that's probably, I don't know, that might even be three-fourths of what our treasury is right there. Could even be a little bit more. And then there's this discretionary piece. So that's the part that we're talking about. And that's a pretty small bucket right now. So I think just thinking about it strategically as to what makes sense in terms of how do we bring more people onto Nouns Builder to build DAOs?
Yeah.
How do we attract more people to support Builder DAO? And if we're and these two things should be any proposal that we're putting up or we're passing should hit one of those, preferably both.
Mhm.
So that to me is the way I'd look at it. I don't want to be too specific on, this thing, not that thing, because, it all comes down to what people put up for proposals and whether or not it makes sense, in terms of what we're doing. I think Ripe's drop proposal thing, I think we had a great feedback session with him. It was like, we love
Yeah.
this. This is a great idea, but we just can't do it at 25 ETH right now. What can we do to have this make more sense? And I think that was a great discussion that led to a great revision of the prop. And I hope that in turn will lead to some revenue generation as well as more uh, folks coming on board onto Nouns
Yeah.
Builder. So there's a lot of that kind of thing that I think makes a lot of sense. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with that right now.
Point to nouns and say that they do a lot of sort of marketing and I would say like different type events, not necessarily product
Hmm.
development, not necessarily client dev, but all kinds of
Right.
wild ideas. But that's
Yeah.
also because their treasury is like an order of magnitude larger
Not as
than ours.
not as big as it used to be.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
as not as big as it was 2 weeks ago. So
It's true,
honestly,
but
similar discussions are happening there. I was just in
it's
a
true.
council meeting and we were just having that discussion of like, there's a it there's a although that there's this feeling of like we need to spend more in nouns and we do, but at the same rate it's also like we have to still be careful now because we have a smaller treasury, and that's just what happens. You start with a lot and you're like, oh, let's go crazy and try everything crazy, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. All our money's gone, we got to be less crazy now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I
And
think
auction.
Builder's just different. I think Nouns has a very different mission where it's just proliferate the meme, get the noggles everywhere. Let's see if we can make a CCO brand, work. And then Builder, it's like we've got like actual infrastructure that people are depending on that needs to continue, needs to be sustained. So I feel like it's a little different. We have to be a little bit more careful and a little bit more conservative in what
Yeah.
we do.
And on this topic of the relationship between us and the nouns,
Mm-hmm.
so what I guess I knew I know that there was some tension between the broader noun style and noun speeder in the past, as you have already alluded to earlier. But now that after the fork, a lot of the annoying people they're gone. So
Oh, you'd think so, but not really.
not really. Okay, yeah. Not all of them, but I'm sure
Oh,
some of
no,
them
not
have.
really.
Okay, yeah. So good.
Just kidding.
So I guess I'm curious. What do you think about how we should position ourselves relative to nouns? For example, how should we collaborate with
Mm-hmm.
nouns in future events, proposals? Anything that we could do together.
I think the biggest thing, and we've already been doing it, is showing our value over and over again. And I think the L2 stuff has put us on the map and put us in the right
Yep.
direction. And I think because of what we're doing there, that's things that can translate over into the larger nouns ecosystem. I think we just keep telling our story over and over again through the positive impact that we're having with DAOs and the DAOs that are doing positive impact out in the world, and they reflect back on us. So I think we just have to do a better job about telling our story. And also, I'm always in there, right? I'm always in noun, all the different nounish things, talking about what we're doing all the time. Like anytime it relates to the larger discussion, I'm throwing it in there and saying, oh, hey, yeah, we're doing that over here. And here's what we're doing. I literally just said this on Nouncil earlier when we were talking about treasury. And I said, oh, yeah, we've been talking about this treasury breakdown. And ideally, it would work like this if we could get it developed, but it may be down the road and blah, blah, blah. So it's, telling that story. And I think they're already seeing the positive impact.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've righted the ship enough that there's no more calls for return the funds, you guys are screwing up. There's none of that anymore. Honestly,
I hope not. I hope not.
we've got a little bit of a flip going on at the moment where like we look stable and organized and like on a positive trajectory, and while there's chaos in the rest of the nouniverse. So I think we just keep doing what we're doing and keep those communication flows open. I think one of the best things that's happened is the activity that's happening in the Farcaster channel on
Yep.
for nouns, because that has been it's really funny. It really says a lot that for you and I and Chris and all these folks have been over here going, Farcaster is awesome, you should get in here. And it took one person to be like, I'm going over here, and then everyone went, okay. And you just had to be the right person. It was like, okay, but it makes you feel kind of bad. It's like, you guys wouldn't listen to me, I told
Yeah, it's
you.
true. Well,
It's like funny, but I think that
I
activity
know, right? Yeah.
that activity on Farcaster, actually they see us more now because that's where we are a lot. You know what I mean? So I feel like they can see us more in what we're doing and the
Yep.
impact we're having more now that they're over there. So I think we're on the right track. I don't think there's anything really specific we need to do at this moment. Just keep doing what we're doing.
Yep.
So
Yeah, fantastic. And then, by the way, I want to be conscious of your time. You said that you have a
yes,
hard
I
stop.
do have
At,
and at one
yeah.
moment, if my headphones cut out, I just may have to switch a little bit, but I'll let you know because I just realized I'm way down low on battery. But I'm good until about 12:25. We got to start to wrap, and then because I have to
Okay.
head to
Cool.
I'm
Fantastic.
at a
Yeah.
conference at Notre Dame today in Indiana. Not the cathedral, the
Fantastic.
university, not the cathedral in Paris. So I got to head over there. It starts at 1. I gotta walk over to the place. So
Yeah. I actually want to ask a bit about sort of your backstory and your day job. So that is a perfect
cool,
segue
nice
because
segue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are 10 different things that I want to talk to you about, but I thought we
We
could
can
talk
do a
about it at
follow-up.
another
We can
time.
do a follow-up.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
problem.
e-
Yeah, I'd love this. This is
exactly.
fun. This is fun. We'll do a
Exactly. But
follow-up.
since you're at the conference, so
Yeah.
could you tell me a bit about first of all, how's the conference? Second, what is your day job? How do you teach your students about
Yeah.
nouns?
Yeah, I teach them about, I teach them about blockchain, and nouns just, finds its way in.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I'm at a conference it's called Experiential Classroom. So it's for entrepreneurship professors. So I teach in the School of Entrepreneurship at Florida Gulf Coast University. And
Mhm.
I've been teaching there. I've been teaching in that part of the university for 4 years. I was in a different program before that teaching, and been teaching at FGCU since 2013. But I've been teaching since about 2010 in various
Mhm.
other capacities. So I teach a few different courses, and I teach legal strategies for startups. I have a JD and an MBA, so I teach from that
Fantastic.
perspective. I don't have a PhD, so I'm not a researcher. I'm not a academic per se, which sometimes there's some friction. Let me tell you, those PhDs they are a different breed. Um, so. Um, so I teach legal strategies for startups, social entrepreneurship, which is profit and purpose. And then I created a class called Blockchain Applications, which started in January of 2022, so our spring semester of 2022,
Mhm.
which in its first iteration was I was doing way too much in one class, and now I have a second class called NFTs in the Metaverse, which is more of a project-based class. But that
Mhm.
first semester, one of the goals that I had was to create an NFT project and within the class, and I was like, I don't know if we can pull this off. And 4 days before, and this is entrepreneurship students, not software engineering students. And 4 days before the semester started, the software engineering department messaged me and said, "Hey, we had somebody who's going to who's not coming back for the semester due to an illness. Would you want to take over the class and turn it into a blockchain class?" I'm like, "Do you understand I cannot code at all? Like, not even a little bit." And they're like, "Yeah, we get that. We don't have anything about blockchain, and we want our students to learn." I'm like, "Okay, fabulous." And I'm like, "Okay, wait a minute. Now I've got a class of techie people who could actually pull off this NFT project, because you got to think back. This is 2 years ago almost, and that's like 200 years in NFT time. So there
True.
was no Manifold, no Zora,
Mhm.
no very few no code ways to do this. So I ended up using Factoria, which was used by SideNoun. So SideNoun, who a lot of people don't know, and it's a cute little project, so go check it out.
Mhm.
SideNoun was my entry into the Nounish ecosystem. So what
Wow.
happened was, during that semester, I wanted to create an NFT project. We first, of course, were talking about our logo and our mascot and all these kind of directions, and realized that I would not be able to use that due to copyright and trademark issues. And it was going to take me too long to get permissions, and it just wasn't going to work. I was like, what can I do? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Nouns is CC0. What if we did, oops, I think I lost it. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can. Loud
Hold
and
on one
clear.
sec.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. Very good.
Yeah, I knew my
Yeah.
headphones were going to die. Um, so and I got to step back just 1 second, and this is the part like we're going to have to speed run through. But my background is copyright and trademark. So I came out of law school and went to work for Thompson and Thompson, which is a trademark and copyright research
Wow.
company. So I was a copyright maxi.
Mhm.
And I had this massive shift uh, uh, to understanding CC0 and really appreciating it. So when I had this opportunity come up, I was like, okay, we could use nouns, but we'll create our own version that's just like the heads that you'd find in Florida. Are,
Mhm.
what I mean, like just things that are, so we, no snowmen, no, we took out the snowman, we took out, all those, the snowmobile, all those things. And created our own version of that and called it Flora Nouns, so Florida Nouns.
Yeah.
And and that led to me joining Nounsel, which led to all the other things.
straight on through. But it's really, what was interesting is when I started that class, I said, this isn't a class, it's a DAO in the making. And I really wanted the class to be a DAO, and I still couldn't figure it out. So actually, this semester, I finally, and this is totally because of the L2. So when Nouns Builder came online, I was like, oh, now I could create a DAO, but I still had this limitation of the high cost of ETH. And I'm like, I still can't do this. So this semester, I'm actually doing it. So I'm finally getting to the point where we can actually do all the things I want to do. And I really teach from a perspective of like doing is better than talking about it. So
Yeah.
whenever I can do something, whenever we can actually do the thing that we're learning about, it is way better learning experience. So I'm going to have them like interacting with a DAO, which already is up, and don't go bid on anything because we're turning the auction off immediately, and I'm airdropping tokens to them. And that's how I'm managing that, because I don't want it to necessarily be an open DAO, but I want to use the platform. So those are the kind of the weird things that we have to tweak a little bit and think about. Because we don't realize those needs until they happen, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other discussion. So to me, like giving students an opportunity to learn about this, there's nobody at my university that's teaching anything related to blockchain right now besides me, including the computer science students, like the software engineering students are taking my class to get that information. It's now an elective for
Wow.
them. It's now like they can, so it's kind of like it's really backwards, but it really kind of shows how early we are as well. So that's my day job. It ties directly into all the other stuff I do, and anything I'm doing, within Builder DAO and Nouns and all these things, I'm taking all these connections and all these things I'm learning, and I'm pulling it into the classroom and trying to give them the best experience they can have. Something else I did this semester was lean into Pudgy Penguins, because I worked with Luca on the Pudgy Penguin prop that went up to Nouns and got to know him really well. And so we've been tracking their project and using their video, blog series on YouTube called Building in Public. And so the students are just, really starting to get into it. They do know about nouns. We talk about we do talk about it a little bit, but mostly in relation to Flora Nouns and their project. But also, realizing that there's things that we've done with that project that are kind of really special, in that, there's the green and blue noggles are now associated with Flora Nouns. And the reason we chose the blue and green, and pretty much for, I think the first project I only let them use those ones, is because that's the school colors. So now, like, even Toady Hawk will be like, oh, the Flora Nouns noggles when they come up in FOMO and things like that. And the flamingo is like incredibly associated with me now, even though I do not own a flamingo noun, but I keep using it everywhere for everything. So, you see a flamingo noun, you're probably going to think of me. So it's, some of these little fun things that have come out of, just integrating it into my day job and finding ways to bring that fun of nouns into what I do on a day-to-day basis, and
Yeah.
makes it a lot more interesting, that's for sure. So
I'm now really jealous of your students, because they get to learn all of the things while studying university. So that's
yeah.
fantastic.
I
Yeah.
know it's
I mean,
really fun, and it's funny because I've had people like say, "I want to take your class." I'm like, "Yeah, you already know everything." Like, no, you don't. But it's kind of shocking, like how little exposure a lot of them have to anything related to blockchain, NFT, anything. So it's
yeah.
that part is very fulfilling. That at least they all walk out of class with a wallet. I can
Yes.
continuously, like, even as alumni, I could still drop things to them in their wallets if I wanted. A lot of them may not be using them and may not be interacting and may have lost their seed phrase, even though I told them not to, all the things. But it's kind of exciting and different. And there's things like I've had as a bigger vision that I just haven't been able to realize yet, but I have on sort of my down the road, and really like, how can we better tap into that alumni audience as well and keep them
Yeah.
connected better. And I think there's something with blockchain that we can do that for sure. So
100%. Yeah. This is so exciting and like so unique, I have to say. I don't think any other college professor is doing anything
I don't think
remotely
so
similar
either.
to what you're doing. Yeah. So
And
this
I've
is
been,
literally the frontier.
there's a funny part of this. It's like I've been very I'm out there and very public, and everybody within this space knows me. But like beyond that, I've been a little quiet about it, like even at my own university, because I was so afraid of them shutting it down, right? Or getting nervous, or, FTX crashes, and it's like, oh God,
Sure.
all these things. I always start the class with, don't buy anything while you're in this class because you're going to get excited, and I don't want you to get wrecked because you don't know what you're doing yet. So, there's that aspect to it where I've been a little nervous, but I know, like, as I get more confident that I'm like, okay, we're on the right track. This is working really well. Students getting a lot out of it. I want to start talking about that more, but I have not found most of the universities that are teaching anything related to blockchain are doing it from the software engineering perspective, not from the business and entrepreneurship perspective of like, how do we use this technology to solve problems and to help startups and to, all of those aspects. And that's kind of the direction I'm coming at it from, which makes sense why DAOs are so interesting to me, is, for as well
100%.
as many other reasons, but
yeah. I know that we're at time, so
I know.
I
I'm
don't want to take
sorry.
too much of it. Let's do a part 2 sometime in the future.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I have
And
to
this
say,
has
Bill,
been,
I really appreciate the work that you've done in developing this. This is a really interesting platform. I'm excited to see where it goes. And I love that we can have a prop discussion and do a vote like right on the same app. That is very cool integration. So well done. And I
thank you.
saw your candidate prop. If you get a little, definitely connect with Now 40. If it gives you a little pushback on, the ask, find ways to reduce it. And have it make sense. But I do think this is a super useful tool that would be incredibly useful to any DAOs in the Nanoverse. So I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Really appreciate it. And I hope that we'll get to do more proposal discussions on this app.
Yes, I'd love to do
And
that. I think it's something we should invite any proposer to do within BuilderDAO to connect with you and find a time to do a chat like this for sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I would love to continue this, but we are
I know
at
I gotta
time,
go.
unfortunately. Yeah, so
I gotta go.
well,
I don't want to, but I gotta go.
I know.
I'd rather stay here with you. Don't tell the others.
Well, I really appreciate this conversation, Prof, and fascinating to hear your, Nounish journey and the things that you're building both at university and at Nounish Builder. So, I wish you good luck at your conference, and then I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, and I love your emojis. I keep playing with them. I love the nog. Let's see if we can get Elon to add noggles to Twitter. That'd be great.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll message him right after this.
Go message him and say, I can build this for you. Just,
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill.
You.
And thanks everybody who stuck around. Appreciate you. And I will to check the chat and make sure there wasn't any other questions. Oh, thanks, Anuradh. And I know Satori was here earlier. And Sharky, I think I saw too. So I appreciate you all. And